दोनों ओर के सैनिक पांसे की नोकों पर नर्तन करते अपने विरोधी को हराने के लिए आगे बढ़ते जा रहे हैं। प्रत्येक दिव्यास्त्र को उचित दिव्यास्त्र से रोका जा सकता है, लेकिन उनका चयन योद्धाओं की बुद्धि पर निर्भर है। कुरुक्षेत्र के इस युद्ध में क्या आप जीवित बच सकते हैं, इसका निर्णय भाग्य और योद्धाओं के कौशल के हवाले है। जानिए, आपको मिलती है वीरगति या बनते हैं सम्राट युधिष्ठिर के राज्य का हिस्सा। खेलिए महाभारत युद्ध पर आधारित यह रोचक खेल, रणभूमि कुरुक्षेत्र।
Hello everybody, I welcome you all to another session of Kahi Suni. Today we have with us Aneesh Gokhale ji, who works as a navigating officer in the Merchant Navy. When he is not sailing on the high seas or moored at some port, he devotes his time to writing. He has written 3 books, published them: Sahyadris to Hindu Kush, Battles of the Maratha Empire, and Lachits the Indomitable. Welcome Anish ji to the session.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Without any delay, I would like to start asking the questions. First of all, I would
Sure.
like you to introduce the audience to story basic outline so that the audience can feel more connected towards the story.
Right. So the story for today is the invasions of Jagannath Puri. So as you know, a very popular and famous temple exists at the temple town of Puri in Odisha. That is the Jagannath temple. But what is not necessarily known is that the temple faced a host of invasions right from the 9th or 10th century up to almost the 18th century. And roughly these were 17 or 18 of these invasions. So in the book, The Flight of Deities, which is about temple desecration and the actual flight or the measures taken to protect the idols and murtis across the length and breadth of India in various situations, is what the book is about. And one of the chapters in the book is about Jagannath Puri, which I have written. So it talks about how the temple was attacked numerous times and how the idols, the murtis, were protected each time and were possible to save them either by taking them to different town or to a different village or to hide them in the Chilka lake. Rather than just being a dry account, it has been dramatized and it has been made into a story format where a person is describing all these events as they happen. It's a conversation between two people, so it makes it more lively to read. So it covers everything in a very short and precise manner. Mostly, it talks about the resilience that the people showed, the fight that they put up, and how much of an effort they took to protect and save the temple. Because once you take the murti away from the temple ceases to exist. It just becomes a dead structure.
Right.
It is the idol inside which creates the temple. And this contrast can be seen in Konark and Puri. If you go to two places, you can see the stark contrast that is there. Konark doesn't have idol inside.
Yeah.
It is a sun temple, but the consecrated murti of the Surya Devata isn't there inside anymore. It has some people believe that it is now existing in Delhi Museum as an archaeological find, and
Okay.
some people consider that it has never been found. But the end result is that Konark has become a tourist site. It has now become a pilgrimage site. Uh, but compared to that, if you see Jagannath Puri, it is a pilgrimage site, continues to be. Now recently, every time there is a Rath Yatra, huge numbers of people make a beeline for the town. And all this depends on the fact that the idols are there inside the temple. So you can gauge the importance of that saving the idols throughout these 18 invasions. And they happen across many centuries. There was hardly any century where you know the temple was not attacked at some point of time.
Okay, so basically, what inspired you to choose the invasions of Puri? Because throughout the Indian history, there have been invasions and many invasions at many temples. basically many pilgrimage sites. Especially there are temples like Somnath which were attacked 17 times. So,
Right.
what made you choose the temple of Jagannath Puri?
So one reason is that the history of Odisha itself is not very well known outside
Yeah,
of the state. It is
right.
very similar to how we have perceived Northeast India also. And we'll come to that Lachit Barfukan topic also. So similarly, the history of Odisha also is not very widely known in the rest of India. For example, till 1568, there was no Muslim rule over the province,
Right.
which is quite late. By 1568, we find that many other places in the country, the whole of North India, right up to the Sultanate of Bengal, even South India again is now seeing a revival at that point of time through the Vijayanagar Empire, which is again in 1565 it's been defeated in the Battle of Talikota. So you find that Orissa is one of those rare places which have managed to keep away this wave of invasions throughout, which has defended itself very successfully. And as I was reading about this, I found out that in fact Puri had been attacked several times as part of this, the whole history. There's also another way of looking at Orissa history is that the Maratha Empire had managed to reach there in the 18th century, and the Maratha rulers, that is the Bhosles of Nagpur, who were governing that province, did a lot of activities and upkeep of this temple, made grants of land and money and lot of you know, rest houses for the pilgrims and building of roads from Bengal to Odisha. These kind of activities were being done by them. So then that got me into more of knowing the history of the temple itself. Where I came across this, this entire history, where you find that it has been attacked multiple number of times, in fact, and successfully defended.
Okay, so since you already said that the history of Odisha is not very well known, why don't, and especially also of the Jagannath temple, the invasions, the series of invasions that took place, why don't we begin with from where the invasion actually began from, what time and who started the invasions at Jagannath temple in Puri?
So one of the earliest mentions goes back to almost the 9th century or 10th century AD, where a
Okay,
Hindu king from the western side of Orissa itself attacked.
okay,
And the difference to be seen here is that the idols were taken and they were consecrated again and they were established in a new temple. So
right.
this we see has happened multiple times in history where Hindu rulers do attack others' temples. It is not just that the other way around. But the major difference to be seen is that in all these cases, what happens is that the idols are taken from one place and then they are duly worshipped in a second place. So the centrality idol or the importance of the murti does not decrease. It doesn't
Right.
get destroyed. It is simply changing from one temple to another. Because why this king is doing two things. One, he doesn't want to destroy murtis himself. He's a Hindu. He doesn't want to do these kind of things that he destroys temples and murtis on his own.
Yeah, yeah.
At the same time, when he takes away the idol belonging to another king, he is also trying to show his political prowess in this. And he's showing that I can do a better job of keeping up the upkeep of this murti, that kind of thing.
Right.
So that one incident happened. The murtis were again brought back to Odisha about 70, 80 years later. Then we have a long period of time where the invasions of Odisha do not happen.
Okay.
This is a time period when Bengal, Bihar, these parts are all being attacked by the Afghans and other Uzbeks and all these people. For example, at the beginning of the 13th century, you have the attack on Nalanda, for
Yeah.
example, 1206. This is for a time that you have Bengal also being attacked. But Jagannath Puri faces his first attack in 1340,
Right.
much later.
Yeah.
So in 1340, I think Ilyas Shah was his name, the progenitor of the Bengal Sultanate, which then lasted for the next 150, 60 years. He attacks it. Again, he tries to attack the idols. Now, this is very interesting what happens every time the invaders come. They try to attack the idols itself. Uh,
Yeah.
so yes, the loot part is one thing, that the temple has been looted and everything and ransacking happens. But also important that throughout the time, right from this Ilyas Shah who tries to attack it in 1340 to the time of Aurangzeb and even some Mir Taki governor who came after him in 1725 or something, 1732 in fact, there was a concentrated effort to attack the idols and destroy them, which is
Right.
very different to simply wanting the wealth of the temple. So there was a
Right.
very constant attempt to attack and take it. So 1341 invasion happens. Between 1340 to 1568, there are about two more invasions are there. So you have around three invasions from outside. Um, 1340 to 1568, when the invasion of Kala Pahad takes place.
Right.
And these 3 centuries, a lot of time period, 1340, even prior to that, there were, Muslim rule was established in north of Odisha, but then they have some very strong dynasties ruling over Odisha of today, such as the Gajapati dynasty, uh,
Yes.
such as Kapilendra Dev, Narasimha Dev. So these rulers are very strong militarily, politically, and they make very good use of the terrain that Odisha offers. In fact, the Gajapati dynasty extends from what is more or less today's southern Bengal right up to what is today's Tamil Nadu,
Okay.
and also it goes to the west, and they also battled Bahmanis at some point of time. Um,
Okay.
they, in fact, fight a few battles trying to save the Hindu kings who are there in that part of the country. Uh, the entire province exists as a Hindu-ruled province for a lot of time. So till 1568, it doesn't find a Muslim ruler, which is when you have Kalapahar that comes into the picture.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I would like to tell the audience that they can pose questions and we'll definitely put them up here. Okay. So, since we are already talking about Kala Pahad, and we know that you already told us in 1568 the Muslim rule came in Odisha. So, how did the invasion from of Kala Pahad become a decisive event in the history of Odisha and that of the Jagannath temple as well?
Yeah. So Kalapahar basically, his actual name was Suleiman Kirani. He was an Afghan general from the Bengal Sultanate. In attack from the north. Now there are various reasons. One is that there was iconoclastic tendency in all these rulers to attack temples. So throughout the country, you find that temples are being attacked. Now, specifically about Jagannath Puri, you have to find is that um, you had a ruler called Ananga Bhimadeva III, I think in the 11th or 12th century. He said that the ruler of Odisha is going to be the Jagannath of Puri.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so that God is going to be the ruler of the whole country,
Yes.
and we are his servants. So the kings are, so they got the title rotary. Basically, means are going to be servants or the helpers of this God, and he is the ruling deity. It immediately put different context to the whole regime. It no longer remained rule that is of the kings itself, but now it became sort of rule that is of Jagannath Puri itself. And this we see has been repeated in various other places across India. For example, the Ranas of Mewad, they consider that
Yeah.
the ruler is Eklingji.
Yeah. In
And
Odisha
there is,
also.
yes, Orcha also, and we also find in Orcha, for example, Sri Ram is supposed to be ruler,
Yes.
not the ruler of the place. Similarly, you have the Padmanabh temple in Kerala,
Yeah.
where we rulers consider him to be the actual ruler of the place. So this was also another reason, apart from religious reasons, that they wanted to attack this, because uh, it was a psychological thing also that we had to protect him. It automatically
Right.
also meant that people would do anything to protect the idols and the temple from outsiders. And we find a lot of soldiers, common people, then have managed to save. Yes. Coming to Kalapad again, yes, this was 1568. There was some disturbance in the northern borders. They were not able to defend it as well. Cuttack was the capital at that point of time, and Kalapad came in, sacked Cuttack, and then he proceeded further and desecrated a lot of temples in Balasore, desecrated them in Cuttack, and continued the desecration into Puri also. They also believe that he was instrumental in bringing down the temple at Konark. And so Kalapar name pops up just about everywhere. There is a temple destruction taking place. Kalapar name has to be there. His name is there also in the destruction of Kamakya temple in Assam, for example.
Okay.
So this point of time, the Hindu rulers of Odisha lost their clout because this Afghan had come in. Again, the idols, the murti was saved and they were taken away to a temple elsewhere, hidden in the forest. 7, 8 years later, they were back. Uh, so after Afghans, you had the rule of the Mughals in the provinces. As basically, Odisha was captured during the reign of Akbar by Mansingh,
Yeah.
and this is when it went under the Mughal rule. So once it went under Mughal rule, basically what happened is that the atrocities by the Afghans stopped
Okay.
because it had come under the rule of Man Singh, and then he distributed back to the original rulers and made them mansabdars. So there was again a period of lull where the pilgrimages continue. So we find that there is actually continuously ebb and flow of events taking place. So there was one guy comes along, he's trying to destroy the temple, trying to destroy the idols, and then there's a period of time where the temple managed to survive, and then the pilgrimage revenues go up. Again, suddenly you find that we decided that invasion needs to be mounted on Jagannath Puri. So it is a continuous struggle going on. There's no guarantee that just because Akbar has come into the picture, now the earlier days have gone behind us. Again, you find during the reigns of Jahangir, Shah Jahan, there have been various, deputies and minor sardars and such trying to attack the temple and trying to capture it, the temple wealth and all these things are again repeating right from the past.
Okay.
So all set together, about 17 invasions take place till the time we find Aurangzeb come to the picture.
Okay.
And yeah, so the question.
Okay. So there have been so many invasions, since the beginnings of the centuries, since ninth century basically. uh, do you what do you think is the reason that so many invaders were attracted to Jagannath Puri? Was it that the Hindu rulers and the Suryavanshi rulers were very strong? There there power something that attracted the rulers, the invaders, sorry, or it was the popularity of Jagannath Puri itself that attracted so many invasions uh, from different invaders?
So, as you know, the invasion of India started right from the 10th century itself. To talk about
Yeah.
specifically what is today's India only, and if we leave out the parts that is today's Afghanistan, Balochistan, these parts, but just talking about today's India, we find that the invasion that started right from the time of Muhammad Ghori and even before that. In 1025, we have Mahmud of Ghaznavi trying to attack Somnath temple. Then we have Muhammad Ghori in 1192. So beyond that, it is a continuous series of invasion that keeps taking place for various reasons. One is, of course, financial. Is that there is a lot of loot to be taken from India, and
Yes.
second reason, of course, is to expand the territory, expand and convert the local populations. So Odisha also was a very rich province, continues to be a rich province, and it was the only province remaining free out of all the places that surrounded the state. You
Yes.
had the Sultanate of Bengal already established. There was the Deccan Sultanates. If you leave out the deep south of the country, that is Kerala and some part of Tamil Nadu, you find that up to the 14th, 15th century, till the time the Vijayanagar kingdom established itself across Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. Odisha happens to be the only place that is free of all the foreign influence.
Huh.
So it was obviously a coveted place, especially from the point of view of the Bengal sultans
Right.
who wanted to capture because adjacent to their own province, it was the most natural course of action to follow. It had uh, rich maritime traditions, for example, which again went back many centuries, so the good place for trade also. Uh, so these are the reasons, and of course, the temple of Jagannath itself was very famous and rich. Plus, they knew that if they could destroy that particular murti, that particular temple, they're going to have a huge psychological effect on the population and maybe force them to convert or something similar.
Right. So basically, we can say that the first attack that happened was a secular kind of attack. The attack by the Hindu king, the invasion. But then the attacks became sort of religious, if you could say. Uh,
Yes. We can have that kind of conclusion that there's a difference between what happened between the first attack and then the later on how the attacks which happened. It had a iconoclasm with it. There's an example in this case of Kalapahadu attacks in
yeah,
1568.
yeah,
The idols had been taken away and they were hidden in Chilka Lake.
yeah,
But he managed to find them somehow. They were hidden there. They took it out from the lake and set them on fire. But the history has it that the Brahma Padartha that is inside the idols was somehow saved again. They could be established in the new murtis later on when the Kala part had left. So it shows that the whole crux was not just about destroying the temple or just looting it, but a lot of the invasions specifically aimed at destroying the idols itself,
right.
and hence the idols had to be taken away, the murtis had to be taken away and established in a new temple somewhere, or hidden in the forest somewhere, or hidden in the middle of the Chilka Lake and such activities, so that the wooden idols would not be burnt by the invading armies. So it shows us as to the what the focus of these invasions were, apart from just the wealth of the temple.
Okay, you told us that Kala Pahar was an Afghan commander named Turani. So there's another version of the story which is not historically proved, but it goes around that Kala Pahar was a Brahmin first,
Yeah.
and
So I also said, but again, it's not historically proven and it
yeah,
is not generally taken to be a truth. Now, generally, it's agreed that the person was Suleiman Firani. The story talking about is one Rajiv Lochan Ray.
yeah,
And this Rajiv Lochan Ray was apparently going to marry some Muslim girl, and the whole idea didn't work out in his house, so he converted. And then he converted to such an extent that it became Karapar.
yeah.
There's no historical basis for this. It's generally recognized that Kalapad was Sulekhan Tarani, the Afghan general who came
Okay,
from Bengal.
but it's an interesting version that the history or the legends have created,
Right.
and we come to know of a scorned man, basically Kala Pahar, Rajiv Lochan, who first fights against Turani. In the legend that goes, he fights against Turani, and Turani basically makes this whole plan of getting Rajiv Lochan seduced by his daughter Guzman. So I'm not sure about the daughter's name, but yeah. So this is why he converts basically, and this legend goes around like that,
Right.
and it takes a decisive turn. It makes a decisive turn in the history of Orissa as well.
Right.
Uh, yeah. So I would like to ask one question, which I found, very, which troubled me a lot. Uh, if the Suryavanshis or the Hindu rulers who were ruling at the time when Kala Pahar attacked, if their the military forces, the military were prepared accordingly, could the invasion of Kala Pahad have been stopped, and the course of the history, could it have been changed so that the Muslim rule, instead of the Muslim rule, it would still have been Hindu rule, uh, somehow. Do you think?
Yes, possible, but then conjecture can have any number of meanings. So, yeah, if they had defended, Karapa had not attacked, maybe it's possible. But then again, you have to see that continuous political change was happening across the country.
Right,
We
right.
also had Mughals come into the picture very soon after that.
Hmm.
But just a
Yeah.
few years after the Karapa episode, the province goes under the Mughals. So
Hmm.
the attack by Akbar may still have happened. Yes, the desecration and all this may not have happened in the absence of Karapat.
Yeah.
So yes, we can always argue that if certain event in history had happened differently, then things would
Hmm.
have turned out differently elsewhere. But I guess as a purist in the matter of history, I would say that uh, conjecture and drawing alternate histories is fun, but it's not really
Yeah.
right
Right.
discussion.
Uh, there have been so many invasions on the temple of Puri, but still it's surviving, it's thriving. In fact, there's this tradition of renewing of the images, reinstalling the images, remaking them every 12 years. Do you think it played any role in the survival of the temple? Did it help in any way, this tradition?
No.
Or
So the tradition, yeah, the idols at Puri basically they have something called a Brahma Padartha. And nobody
right.
knows what this is. Uh, Absolutely no one knows. And it's the priests over there are sworn to secrecy. Even describe the entire ceremony takes place blindfolded,
Okay.
and they are not even allowed to say what they feel with their hands. Whether there is, or if they can see anything they're not supposed to tell about it, not speak about it. This is the tradition being followed for many, many years. So the whole mystery of the Brahma still exists. Some people say it is Krishna's heart and other religions are there, but we have absolutely no clue. There are some also those who say that the Brahma is part of the very original idols which were established. Uh, the worship of Jagannath Puri itself goes back many, many thousand years actually. Not 8 or 900 years, 1,000 years. It goes back many thousand years, and it
Right.
goes back right to a time when they were far more, I'd say, backward, but the society was far more basic as compared to today. From there, it is continued for so long, and some things are simply lost so much in time that we still don't know what the whole meaning is. Now the idols, the wooden idols which cover this Brahma Padartha, these are renewed every 12 years. 12 years, 19 years, and this cycle depends on the Adhik Mas concept of Hindu calendars. We have one extra month is added to what we see as the leap year in the Gregorian calendar. We have a leap year where February becomes 29 days
Yeah.
every 4 years. uh, to compensate for the variation in the annual cycle. The Hindu calendar basically has a Adhik Mas, an extra month to
Okay.
compensate for all the variations that keep happening over the years. But since we're going to
Okay.
compensate the entire month, it happens once every 12 or 19 years,
Okay.
depending on the solar cycle. Instead of
Okay.
having an adjustment made every 4 years, it's an adjustment that happens over a longer period of time. And this change is then brought up in this extra month. And the reason we done is that wood also deteriorates and it also needs renewal. So currently this ceremony is being carried out. Does it have a impact on the invasions? No, because the invasions, whether it was a year where the items were changed or not changed, doesn't really matter. The invasions, so it just kept happening as it is. One definite case we have where the idols were actually found and burnt by an invader, and the Brahmapadatta was saved. But apart from that, mainly it's a case of the murtis itself being saved throughout.
Okay. So it becomes really interesting that so many invasions and yet the original Brahma Padarth was, kept safe, uh, and it has been safe till now. Uh, as a person who's so invested in history and who has written three novels and a lot of articles, why do you think it is important for people to know such incidents which have not been spoken about a lot or which have been lost, which basically take away an important chapter of our history, our identity, I would rather say. Why do you think these events
So,
need to be brought to light?
mhm. So even though it is just specifically happening in Odisha, it's part of our nation's history. So I would say that the various provinces of the country have their own rich histories, which should also be brought to the public. Own rich histories, such as this Odisha, where a foreign ruler did not manage to reach till 1568, and from 1568 to 1751, about 130 years is what it saw a rule by Afghans and Mughals, etc. But apart from this, they have been having mainly Hindu rule. It is a kind of state uh, which is very similar to, say, Assam, which again has written back 1718 invasions. Similar stories, we can talk about the Cholas of Tamil Nadu. Uh, and of course, Maratha history, that is one of my favorites. So, as Indians, we can recognize that different provinces with their histories, we can recognize them as also Indian histories, rather than it being the history of just a particular province. It should be seen as a part of India's history, something you can draw inspiration from. This is also part of not going for the Delhi-centric narrative that we so often see in our textbooks. Although past few years the situation has changed a bit, but when I started writing, it was definitely the other way around. Right? A lot of the history was having very Delhi-centric view, so you could have a lot of information that was about Delhi history, and you had no clue what is the history of Odisha like, what is the history of Assam like, what is the history of Manipur like. So this is also part of it that we explore more about our own country, know more about it. If you go to Jagannath Puri, for instance, yes, you might go there as a devotee for pilgrimage, but then you realize that it has such a long and rich history behind it. Uh,
Right.
it's a different experience. You know, that 17, 18 times people have done something to save this temple, which we are today
Exactly.
visiting and being able to visit freely.
Yeah.
There are other places where this has not been done. People, in spite of the best efforts, could not do it.
Yeah.
Uh, Kashi Vishwanath, for example. And again, Aurangzeb also has a part to play in Jagannath Puri, but I can speak about that now. So similarly, other provinces also, other timelines also, which you're talking about, not just medieval history, but even other aspects of history, where a particular province, particular part of the country reached glorious heights. So the Cholas of Tamil Nadu, for instance, or in Odisha itself, in the previous age, where it traded and carried a lot of cultural exchanges with the Southeast Asian countries.
It actually gives me a lot of goosebumps, when listening to stories about invasions and how so many people, thousands and thousands of people, they gave up their life to save what they considered, were their gods, and they just gave it up. In continuation to the last question, I want to ask, how do you think the today's youth can, get to know this unsung history, this unknown history, which has, remained in darkness for so long? Um, how can we actually, approach it? How do we get to know more about it?
Uh, so the key, of course, is to be curious about the history and try and find out more and more on their own. For example, like I went for the book on Lachit Borfukan, which was earlier titled Brahmaputra. Now it's been relaunched as Lachit the Indomitable. So again, it was a curiosity about Assam history. So what is
Okay.
this provincial history? Uh, Somewhere I read about Lachit Borfuka and then I explored a bit more. So similarly, today a lot of resources are available for us. The internet has been a huge boon. You can also order books. You can read books off the internet. So if there is any part of the country that really interests you, any part of the timeline of this country that interests you, which is not covered by the textbooks, the the whole world is your stage. You can read books, find out more. There are a lot of people doing excellent documentaries also nowadays. So yes, the curiosity exists. There's definitely the outlet for try to find out more and more about it. From my own side, I made a small contribution for writing a couple of books which can help people in this regard. One is of course on Lachit Borfukan, and the other two are on Maratha history. Again, covering aspect which is not normally covered by the history textbooks.
Okay, since we have already come to your books, I would like to ask you, how do you actually approach the historical events when you are writing a novel or when you are writing a book, basically? How do you approach these events? What do you keep in mind?
Right. So now Rachid Indomitable is a historical novel. So it's
Mm-hmm.
history essentially, but written in novel format. Same like Sayatra Shinmukus also. The written story format because it becomes easier for people to relate to a story rather than just a dry collection of facts.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing I keep in mind is one is what is going to be the central focus of this book.
Right.
What do I want to show? Uh, do I want to show about the military prowess of a person? Do I want to show him as a great spiritual person? Do I want to show the administrative qualities?
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to show all of this? And what is the message that should go through the book? Is it just about showing the huge Mughal Empire trying to crush a small kingdom in Assam, or is it going to be about a struggle that the Assamese king puts up against the huge Mughal Empire? Right. So that focus isn't lost. And we are trying to be the central idea. It has to pour, and then the whole book then is towards that idea, keeping it in focus. Battles of Maratha Empire more of a non-fiction book. Uh, it is not in novel format. It's written chapter-wise, and
Okay.
it is chapter sense that every chapter is standalone on its own.
Okay.
In Rachel Table, one chapter leads to the next one. It's the
Okay.
connected story. In this,
Okay.
these are actually many of them were originally articles published by various websites. I've just taken those articles and made them better, added maps and added original letters and some chapters are new. And again, the focus has been about showing the unknown battles of the Maratha Empire together in one place, which is uh, no, not really seen. Most books talk about particular personality, but this covers the major battles together. So yes, this is what I'm. One is the focus of the book, and what is central thing I want to talk about. That should be the focus throughout the book, without losing sight of it. And secondly, also think about the USP of the work that I'm writing. How is this book going to be unique as compared to others available in the market on this field topic?
I think this will be really helpful to people who are trying to approach, historical set of events to write. Um, in the same set of questions, I would like to ask: can we take some sort of creative liberty with the historical events, or we have to stick to the facts religiously?
This is again, I would say, personal opinion as to how much liberty you want to take. Personally, I don't believe in diverting too much from the actual historical fact. For
Okay.
instance, in Lachit table, it's a story, but all the facts are actual events as they happened. Okay, so the invasion of Mir Jumla actually happens. There is a time period where the Ahoms try to rebuild their army after the invasion of the Mughals. The Battle of Saraighat actually takes place. Lachit Borfukan is actually ill when the battle takes place. But to describe these events, then I use bit of dramatization and storytelling. You know.
Okay.
So, uh, for example, in the Battle of Saraighat, which Lachit Borfukan is ill, he was writing one line. Lachit Borfukan was ill at his palace. He tried to, color it a bit. He was feverish. He was finding it difficult to walk around. Okay, he is feeling chills all over his body. He's even in that state, he's able to think correctly about his army, his soldiers, his country. Uh, so I take the liberty of creating the scene for the minds of the reader, but the actual scene has happened in history. That's the amount of liberty I have taken. Other people believe in taking more liberty, uh, in that they will introduce new central characters into the story and such things. But it's up to his. I mean, if you're going to say that your story is a history, then you should divert as little as possible from it. Yeah.
Okay, so
And then if I say
basically,
it's a fictional story and I've taken a few characters from history about it, then yes. But then again, uh, are you using those historical characters as crutches for what is basically ordinary story? That's another point to be mentioned. But yes, this is a bit of a gray area, and it depends on author to author as to how much of a liberty it takes with the
right.
actual historical events.
So, moving on to a few fantastical questions which I always wait for. If you were given the power to go back to a historical era, or back in time, which period or which historical event would you want to go to?
A few of them actually.
Okay.
Definitely to be at the Battle of Saraighat, which I've written about,
Okay.
and I would definitely like to be at the Shivraj Abhishek, that is the coronation of Chhatrapati Shivaji in
that
1674. Yes.
that's an interesting one.
So yes, these two events. But in fact, I would like to be at the all the events I've written about to be like about it. I see whether how correctly I imagined yes or no yes I'm there.
Okay, so another question: if you would like to meet somebody, who could rise back from the dead, who would that person be, and what would you want to ask that person or talk to that person?
Again, similar answer to before that I like to meet all the historical personalities I'm writing about. Uh, Top of it will be again Lachit Borfukan because I have written the entire book and the personality I would really like to meet. Uh, uh, I could say Shivaji Maharaj also, maybe Pesha also. Yes, so it would be great. I know just as a you know, daydreaming that you could meet any of these personalities that we have been writing about and really find out what the person really was like in life.
Those were really interesting perspectives from your side. We got on the invasions of Puri, and on how to approach writing a historical novel, how to approach the events, basically how to learn something new about the history. So I'm sure the listeners also might have learned a lot of new things about the temple of Jagannath Puri also. Thank you all the audience for being connected to
Thank you.
us, and thank you Anish Gokhale ji for coming on the session. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.